Hello, everyone. My name is Carrie Homan, and this is my Chapter 4 assignment on motivational theories. So, the three motivational theories that I would like to talk about today. Number one, David McClelland's learned needs theory. Number two, the goal setting theory. And number three, the self efficacy theory. I'd like to go ahead and begin talking about David McClelland's learned needs theory. This is a theory that people acquire needs based on their personal experiences. And there's three different categories. The first one is the need for achievement. People want to accomplish something and feel great after they do that. Number two, the need for affiliation. These are the people who really like social settings. They need relationships. They need approval of other people. And then the third would be the need for power. People who like to influence others or be in control of certain situations. I like this theory because there are categories. You can put yourself in a category based on the need that influences you the most. Other theories are either based on a hierarchy or one specific characteristic, while this theory has three separate categories that you can divide yourself into, or choose one to classify yourself as. The strengths of this theory, I think that it is a strength that you can separate yourself into a specific category, which one of those needs influences you the most. And then another strength I feel would be that you can utilize members either of your staff or in a teacher situation, students in your classroom in different facets due to the type that they are. You can utilize those people who have a need for power to be more of the leaders of a group. You can use people who have a need for affiliation to be more of the social people in your group. You can assign them a different job than the people who don't need affiliation as much as maybe achievement. The weaknesses of this, some people may feel like they belong in a couple different categories, or they're not sure really where they belong because maybe two of the categories are maybe tied for them. I also feel that as maybe an administrative standpoint, this could be difficult to manage if you have a lot of people who affiliate in or a lot of people who are in the need for power. If you have too many people who associate with the need for power, you might have an imbalance, and that could be difficult to manage. If I were to present this to my staff, I would up on the PowerPoint in a staff meeting have the description of each of these three categories. So the need for achievement, I would have described that these are people who like challenges with reasonable goals. They like frequent feedback. They feel really good about themselves when they accomplish a challenge. The need for affiliation, I would describe that these people need to be in a cooperative environment. And the need for power, these are the people who like to manage other people. What I would have my staff members do would be to choose the one that describes them the best, and I would separate them into the three different categories, and I would want them to have a discussion on the qualities that they possess due to the category that they picked. They could then compile a list, and using certain technology, they can input that list so that all of those characteristics would pop up on the screen of the staff meeting. So then we can compare the characteristics of all three different types. So as a group, they would come up with the characteristics of their type and talk about the strengths of their type. What can they do with the type that they are? And then we can come together as a staff and talk about the differences of each type, and what their strengths are and what we can feed off of those strengths. I then would discuss with the staff ways that we can incorporate these needs into our classroom and how can they be used for student motivation. So number one, I would give the example of group work. I know student engagement is a really big push in our school, and so we've done a lot with students working in groups, and I think it's good for students to work individually, but I also feel that it's important that they learn to work in groups. So one suggestion I would give to my staff would be, if you were to work in groups, assign different roles, but let the students within the group decide which role that they would want to play. So one role could be the note taker, one role could be the leader of the group. That way, based on the needs of the different people in the group, if you had somebody who had a need for power, they could volunteer themselves to be the leader of the group, as opposed to you assigning different roles to group members and them not feeling comfortable. So the leader could be somebody who needs to have that power. If you have somebody who has a need for affiliation, then being kind of the facilitator, coming up with a conversation, that would be a good role for them to have. Another suggestion I would give my staff members would be to offer some sort of challenge problem to students. Not mandatory, but something that could be an option for them. You have those students who have that need for achievement, and tackling a challenge problem would be something that would be really great for them as an option. I know something that I've done in past years is post outside of my classroom a math problem of the week. And students have the opportunity to come by. They don't even have to be in my classroom. They can be in anybody's math class or not a math class at all, but they can come by, grab a problem of the week, fill it out, and then at the end of the week I give candy out to those people who got it right. And based on whichever classroom you're in, you can offer a challenge problem either daily or weekly based on the subject that you teach. Another suggestion I would give my staff would be feedback. Those people who need affiliation like that positive reinforcement. Not everything has to be graded based on right or wrong, and it doesn't always have to be assigned a grade. So one suggestion that I would give would be to give feedback on something, and it doesn't have to be a grade. So one example I have here is a quiz that does not have a grade on it. So what I've done is I've circled problems that are wrong, and then underlined what was wrong about them. And then what I've done here is there isn't -5, this is your grade percentage. I gave some comments. So this was a quiz on parabolas and ellipses. And I've made a comment that they did a really great job on ellipses, and then they've made the mistake consistently on their parabola problems. And so that way they know that they've done something consistently, which is good, and I made that positive reinforcement. You know, we were consistent. But they need to go back and look at that same mistake that they are making. So feedback doesn't necessarily have to come as a grade. It could be just, this is what you're doing really great, and these are the things that we need to work on. That way they get, they have a compliment. They have that need for affiliation. But then you also have some feedback to where they can go back and fix their mistakes. I would have my teachers then discuss student motivation with these 3 questions. So the first would be, what can you do to identify your students' needs? What is the process you could take to figure out what students have the need for affiliation, what students have the need for achievement, and which students have the need for power? Second, what activities have you done in the classroom that would foster one or more types of the needs? So I feel this would be a good question for teachers to be in groups, intermixed. I teach high school, and so I would want teachers to talk together that weren't all math teachers or all social studies teachers. So a mix of teachers where they can say, oh, this is what I've done, and I think that this would fit what we're discussing, or come up with ideas that they haven't done that would be a good idea to use in their classroom. And then third, what kind of feedback are you giving your students? If teachers are only giving grade letter or grade percentage feedback, then this would be an opportunity for them to discuss ways that they can give feedback that was not in the form of a grade. My next motivational theory that I would like to discuss is the goal setting theory. So the goal setting theory is very self-explanatory. We set goals that need to be specific, difficult but attainable, acceptable, and feedback should be provided. So I like this theory because it can be measured. Goals can be measured. You may have heard of SMART goals. SMART goals are goals that are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely. And so if your goal is written with those qualities in mind, one of them is measurable, and I like that. I like that you can set a goal and you can determine, did I meet this goal, did I not meet this goal? Some strengths that this has, you can use this motivational theory as a group and set goals as a group, or it can be individually. You can use them in both ways, which I think is really great. When used properly, goals can be measured and feedback can be very powerful. Weaknesses that this theory has would be that individual goals may not be taken seriously. If you give the task of setting a goal, you may give guidelines, but not everybody may follow them to the best of their ability. Some goals may be set lower than they should be, or way higher than they should be, or not taken seriously at all. As far as applying this, each semester I feel like it would be important for departments to set a goal together. So I would give the departments time in their collaboration time to set a goal as a department, and then at the end of the semester see how they're doing with that goal. And this goal can be a year-long goal, and at the end of first semester they check in, see how things are going. At the beginning of second semester, either adjust their goal or keep the same goal, or they can change their goal second semester. But I feel that it would be important for a department to have a goal and work towards that common goal as a math department, science department, etc. I also feel that teachers need to set goals in their classroom and track the data of grades as they go through the semester. If teachers have a goal to use different strategies, or they try different strategies in attempt to better the understanding of students, then I think it's important to look at the grades and how they change, and are those strategies having a positive or negative effect on students' learning. Another idea that I have would be to give teachers a laminated card that would look something like this. So it would have the teacher's name, and then a blank right here where they can put, Mrs. Holman's goal for this week, this month, this semester, this year, whatever they feel necessary, and then write their goal. And this would be laminated, so that you can use like an expo marker, like you would on the whiteboard, so you can erase it if you wanted to change your goal weekly or monthly or what have you. But then it's something that they can post either hidden, like under their desk, or off to the side, so all of your students can see. But just a way for teachers to kind of hold themselves accountable. This is the goal that I have, and I can see it, and this piece of paper will remind me that I have this goal. And this can be as simple as my goal is to remember to take attendance at 8 a.m. every day, or to try a new strategy. And I would give suggestions to my teachers as far as what I was looking for. But just a way to have it displayed to remind them, okay, this is what I'm focusing on this week or this month. Questions I would ask my teachers to discuss as far as student motivation would be, how can goal setting be effective in your classroom? And I want them to discuss the different strategies that they have used or would like to try as far as using goals in the classroom. I would encourage my teachers to in some way incorporate goal setting, whether it be goals that students have for a particular class or goals that students have for themselves with academics in general, or maybe goals outside of the classroom. And maybe they can incorporate all three in the same setting. But I would encourage my teachers to talk about different strategies or different ways they could incorporate goal setting in their classroom and how that can be effective for their teaching and motivation. The final motivational theory I would like to discuss is the self-efficacy theory. So the self-efficacy theory has 4 sources. The first source is the mastery of experiences. The second, social modeling. So having someone that you look up to, like role models. The third would be social persuasion. So having the encouragement of people around you, the affirmation of others. And then the fourth would be psychological responses. How do you react when either things don't go the way that you planned, or when you feel uncomfortable with something? How do you handle stress? Those sorts of things. So I really like this theory because I feel like it is easily tied to the growth mindset, which I've spent the past year and a half kind of reading about and trying to implement in my classroom. The growth mindset is that you can basically do anything you put your mind to. A fixed mindset would be, I'm bad at math, I can't do this. A growth mindset, I can do it. And so I think that this ties in really well with the psychological responses. If you fail at something, how do you react to it? And the growth mindset would be that you would push forward, you would try again, you're not going to let it get you down. So I really like this theory because I feel like it ties in really well with the growth mindset. The strengths of this theory would be, this is all about how a person perceives themselves. I feel that in our school we have a lot of issues with students not having the best self-esteem. We have a lot of anxiety issues, severe anxiety issues, to where we have a lot of students on 504 plans based on their anxiety, or special plans to where we need to watch them carefully because we know they struggle with anxiety. And so I feel like this is a good theory for those students because it deals with those psychological responses and the social persuasion. I also like this theory because it incorporates role models, and I think that's a really great thing. As far as the weaknesses go, this one is very individual. The other 2 theories that I've discussed in this video, you can relate to both groups or individual, where this self-efficacy, it's all about yourself. Another weakness I feel would be the psychological responses. I feel as either administrator working with the teachers or teachers working with the students, this would be a hard one to catch or which people are struggling with their psychological responses. They aren't always evident. Sometimes things can be happening inside that you don't let others see. And so I think it would be hard to catch the people who are struggling with that 4th source, the psychological responses. As far as implementing this, I'll come back to feedback. I think feedback could be really great here as far as not just a letter grade, but giving feedback based on what they're doing right and things that they need to fix. I also think that having the counselors in my school come in and talk about different ways to help students deal with psychological responses would be a good resource. The counselors are trained on how to help students deal with their anxiety, their stress, and I feel like having them come into a staff meeting and talk about how to help students deal with those issues, or how to watch for certain signs of issues that students are having about the psychological responses would be a good source. One thing that I would want to do in a staff meeting, as I would present the information about the self-efficacy theory, would be to have teachers give some affirmation to other teachers. We all like getting compliments, and we all like hearing that we're doing a good job. And this is a part of the self-efficacy theory, the social persuasion. So one thing that I would do would be to give each teacher a little note that looks like this: "You are awesome because," and I'd have them fill this out about another teacher. I could have a staff member then collect them and distribute them into teachers' mailboxes. And I think that this is something that can be done multiple times throughout the year, to where you pick a different staff member each time to say, I really like that you do this. I think you're doing a really great job in the classroom. And it could be outside of the classroom too. It could be, I really like your style and how you dress. But just giving compliments to each other to get that affirmation of, all right, I'm on the right track, would be something that I think is important. Another aspect of the self-efficacy theory is the social modeling, so having a role model. Some people have role models that maybe are in the school building, and some people have role models that are outside of the school building. Some people haven't really thought about who their role model is. They may have one, they just really haven't given it a thought. So an activity that I would want to do with my staff members would be to give them a piece of paper like this, and I would put them into groups. And so this says qualities of an outstanding teacher. And I would want them to, they can draw on the stick figure if they want to, but list and draw any qualities they feel would be that of an outstanding teacher. Sometimes visual reminders are nice, and we may talk about something in a staff meeting, but then a month later, are we remembering what we're doing or what we talked about in that staff meeting? So this would be a nice visual for teachers. Okay, this is what I'm trying to accomplish. And if you're having a rough day or you're trying to come up with a lesson plan, looking at this and being reminded, okay, this is what I'm striving for. This is my role model. Having this displayed could be a help, later on in the year. Then an idea for the classroom as far as for students would be to give them something similar, but in my classroom, I would give them, describe a successful math student. And so then working together, they can draw or list qualities that would be good for a successful math student. And then as you go throughout the year and, maybe a student is feeling, that the grade isn't where they want it to be. Okay, let's get this out. Are we doing these things to be a successful math student? And then we can work from there. But these two things would be ways to have a role model, even though it's not an actual person, but they can think of an actual person as they're doing one of these activities. Questions I would want my staff members to discuss about student motivation with self-efficacy. One would be, what kind of feedback are you giving your students to foster the social persuasion? So once again, teachers can talk about what kind of feedback am I giving? Can I adjust my feedback to aid in the social persuasion category of self-efficacy. The second, what opportunities can you give your students to master challenges? And how do you help their psychological responses if they fail? So then I would have teachers discuss opportunities they have been giving or opportunities that they could give in the classroom, and then strategies to help students if they don't master those challenges. Knowing that it's okay not to have that mastery, but we need to have a handle on those psychological responses. So that wraps up my 3 motivational strategies. We had the needs theory, the goal setting theory, and self-efficacy theory. All are really great, and I really enjoyed reading up on all of these. Thank you for watching my video, and have a wonderful day.